This is WaXed.
Well, holla, you surfers, you goddamn nerds. I'm just kidding. We're all part of the tribe. How are the breaks looking? Got some lefts, some rights, some green rooms, A-frames?
A weekly surf talk radio show.
Hopefully when you go out there, you'll find your green card and surf on the home. Poser.
With your hosts, Cyrus Satsas.
All I need are some tasty waves, cool buzz, and I'm fine.
Omar Echeverry.
Locals only, you grommet. Stay off my beach!
And Natalie Rose with the news and weekend surf report.
Surfing is out of this world. You just can't imagine the thrill of shooting the curl. It positively surpasses every living emotion I've ever had.
On ESPN 1700.
Yeah, welcome to another edition of WaXed Surf Talk Radio. I'm Cyrus Satsas. Natalie Rose is with me. Omar Echeverry will hopefully join us in just moments. This is officially the only surf talk radio show in all of Southern California, and it's an honor and privilege to be the only program to do so. This is the mainland capital of surfing. Good morning, San Diego. Good morning, Orange County and all of coastal Los Angeles. The ESPN 1700 signal is extremely powerful. Everyone in Santa Monica, Malibu, Ventura, and beyond, the signal reaches there. So if you're listening there, good morning, good early afternoon to you. And if you can also listen to our show online, we stream on the station's website, ESPNradio1700.com. We got a great show for you today. A legend in surfing. I mean, when you talk about the word badass and surfing in the same sentence, the word Chris Malloy, the name Chris Malloy, has to come to mind. I've never interviewed him before. I'm excited to do so. And he was one of the original members of the Patagonia surf team, along with his two brothers, Keith and Dan. And he's going to be on the show to help promote a new documentary that Patagonia has produced. So we're going to get him on the show in about 10 minutes. We're going to have a surf report for you for the entire weekend in just moments. Natalie Rose will have that for you. And, of course, want to mention our website, WaXedRadio.com. That's WaXedRadio.com. That's where we podcast all of our shows. Have a terrific surf gallery, great videos. Go check it out. That's WaXedRadio.com. And our Twitter handle, if you want to find out everything that's going on with the show, some great news that we share, find out who the guests are for upcoming episodes of the program, follow us on Twitter at Waxed Radio. Again, that is Waxed Radio. That is the handle for our Twitter and also for our Facebook and Instagram accounts. Why don't we take a quick break? When we come back, we'll get a weekend surf report with Natalie Rose. And then after that, Chris Malloy here on WaXed on ESPN 1700.
Visit our website, waxedradio.com, to get complete show podcasts and follow us on all social media at WaXed Radio. Now, here's your weekend surf report.
Are there waves? Natalie Rose will answer that question for you. What is the weekend surf report, Natalie?
Well, it is mostly cloudy outside. The waves are super small. There is a southwest groundswell that is hitting our shorelines right now, but it isn't giving any pulse off. There's a little bit of a wind coming through, so I suggest if you are going to surf, you need to get out there early because the winds have been coming up. If you're going to surf today, grab that longboard and go have some fun because it's definitely an LB sesh out there. If you don't feel like surfing because longboard isn't your thing, then I would go fishing or diving because the water did seem pretty clear.
Beautiful. The water also, I went surfing a couple days ago. The water got cold. I don't know if it was like an upwell from one of the swells that came in. I don't know what happened, dude. It's like the water temperature dropped like 5 degrees. So hopefully it warmed up again. But yeah, that is your weekend surf report. Usually we hear from Mike with PacificWaveWriter.com, a fantastic surf forecast site. He did not tweet us today. Usually Twitter's messages, whatever you want to call it. He usually tweets at us at our handle at Waxed Radio to give us a report on Ventura, but he didn't send us a message this week. And then Omar Echeverry, for those of you listening online, we stream at the station's website, ESPNradio1700.com. He usually gives us the Northern California surf report, and O-Dog is apparently nowhere to be found. So that is it for the weekend surf report. Let's get to Chris Malloy next year on WaXed on ESPN 1700.
Visit our website, waxedradio.com, to get complete show podcasts and follow us on all social media at WaXed Radio. Now, more WaXed.
Yeah, this is WaXed Surf Talk Radio, the only surf talk radio show in all of Southern California. here on ESPN 1700. Our next guest is one of the most badass surfers on the planet. If you follow surfing at all, you're very familiar with who he is. Whether you followed his competitive career when he was younger, whether you've seen his movies that he's produced, including Thicker Than Water and A Broke Down Melody, whether you follow his eco-friendly activities, he was one of the founding members of Patagonia's surf team, which is now a huge brand. And it's an absolute pleasure to have on the program Chris Malloy. Chris, how you doing, man?
Good. That was you're too kind.
No, not at all, man. In fact, the second I started doing research on you, and again, I didn't really need to do much, but I wanted to get some of the insights. I mean, dude, like you have had one of the most incredible surf careers ever, and we'll get into all that. So no, that introduction was well deserved, man. Where are you at right now? Are you on your ranch?
Yeah, I'm up in Lompoc, California.
Beautiful. And is that where you're from?
I grew up in Ojai.
Okay.
And I was raised there till I was 18, and then I hit the road at 18, and I've sort of still been on the road ever since. I'm 41 now, so it's been a long time on the road. But, I moved up to Lompoc. There's just, Ojai, I love it so much, but it got a little crowded, so I kind of headed north.
Yeah, I know the area where you're at now. I lived in San Luis Obispo for 3 years, and it's all just beautiful country.
Yeah, it really is. Once you get through the Gaviota Tunnel, it sort of opens up into the old California.
It absolutely does. It really is one of the most underrated parts of California, and I don't want to mention any further because it's one of the last unspoiled areas. But yeah, we're joined by Chris Malloy here on WaXed. And first off, let's talk about Patagonia. I remember when Patagonia first started getting into surfing, and you and your two brothers were like the founding. You weren't founding members of it, but you're certainly the founding team members. You were like the face of the brand. And now, Patagonia is releasing this new documentary called Uncharted Waters, starring Wayne Lynch. And screenings are going to be held this Thursday in Santa Monica, California at the Broad Stage. This Friday in Encinitas, the La Paloma Theater, the legendary La Paloma Theater. It's the greatest place to see any surf film, really. And then on June 27th in New York. Are you in this documentary? Are you featured in it, or are you just supporting your good friend and Patagonia teammate?
Yeah, I'll just be there to support Wayne. I'm super excited about the project. Wayne's been a huge, hero of ours, me and my brothers, just kind of not just his surfing, but kind of what he stands for and kind of the line that he's taken as a surfer, and so, to share his story with everybody is super exciting for us.
It absolutely is, and he is a legend, and the documentary should be a great one, certainly. And you're no stranger to documentaries. I mean, that's one of the ways I was introduced to you back in early 2000, the late 90s. I can't remember when it was, but you produced Thicker Than Water, a great film. And I think Jack Johnson was all involved in the film with you then. Are you still producing surf movies like that?
Yeah, absolutely. The story on that film and kind of how I got into filmmaking was I had kind of been involved, on camera with a bunch of the kind of 90s surf films, as punk rock and super quick cut, and we'd go to these amazing places around the world, and when you watch the film, it was great action, but there was no sort of sense of perspective on, where you were or the cultures you were kind of getting immersed in. And I always thought to myself, God, I love the John Severson films, the Albie Falzon films, Witzig and all that kind of stuff, and I kind of dreamt of doing something like that, but I never thought I'd actually do it. And then in 98, I had a real serious accident at Pipeline, and it looked like I wasn't going to get to surf anymore. And so I thought to myself, I've squirreled away some money from surfing, and I'm going to take that and I'm going to bet it on a film. And lucky for me, the only guy that I knew that could run a Bolex, a film camera at that time, was Jack Johnson. He had just gotten out of school, and he was semi-living in his van in Europe and just bumming around, giving surf lessons. And, I sort of watched him grow up on the North Shore, and I called him. I hadn't seen him in a couple of years. I called him, said, "Hey, Jack, I got some money put aside, and let's go buy a film camera and go make a film." And he didn't have anything going on at the time, and so he said, "Shoot, let's do it." And then I called my cousin Emmett Malloy, who was kind of a PA at a post house who was kind of learning a little bit about editing. And I said, "Hey, you think you can cut this thing if we shoot it?" And he said, "Sure, let's do it." So we traded, surfboards for to get our film transferred, and we found some surfers that were in these post houses, and we traded them wetsuits and surfboards, and we got it done. So that's kind of how it all started. And after that, I just kept, there was always somewhere to go, and we, it kind of wasn't a big planned out thing. We just kept documenting our trips, and then we'd get home and cut them together. And I loved that era because you would finish a film, it'd take a few years, and then you would basically go to high schools and civic auditoriums and places like we're going to show the Wayne film and sit there with a bunch of half-drunk surfers and hoot and holler and share what you had just done, and then start it again. So that was a great era. It's definitely changed with the internet now. It's really that kind of golden era of surf filmmaking is. We were at the very tail end of it, but we had a hell of a good time doing it.
Absolutely, and we're joined by Chris Malloy here on WaXed, and going back to those films that you made with Jack Johnson, I interviewed Jack back in like 2007. This was right before he really blew up. I mean, he was famous already by that point. His albums were reaching #1, but he was still at that point where he would actually go and do interviews with a bunch of radio stations and stuff. Now he can just pick and choose whatever he wants, which is great for him.
Yeah.
And he's got a new album out. I think it just got released. But most people don't realize that part about Jack is that for a long time, he grew up in Hawaii. He was an incredibly good surfer. I mean, he was competing in contests, and if you see him surf, I mean, he's as talented as it gets. Do you guys? Do you still hang out? Do you guys still collaborate?
Yeah, we do. We don't collaborate, but we hang out. He was born and raised on the North Shore. One of the best backdoor surfers I'd ever seen. And when he was 18 or 19, Quicksilver offered him a pro contract, and he said, I'd rather go to school and play music and do what I do, and which was pretty impressive at the time because he was so damn good. And it's funny because he wrote most of his first album while we were on the road doing Thicker Than Water, so it was really fun at the time. I didn't know anything was going to happen with the music, and I had a little recorder, and I'd record the songs, and I remember thinking to myself, God, this is so good. I think everybody would love it, but never thought twice about it, and so. So yeah, he and he's very reluctant to put his music out. I mean, there's some instrumentals that he does in that first film, Thicker Than Water, but he wouldn't let any of the vocals out. He was kind of so shy. So yeah, he was reluctant. He didn't want to be a pro surfer, and he didn't want to be a rock star. He just this music was coming out of him, and people loved it. I mean, I remember when he got his first big record deal, I said, well, geez, we got to take you downtown and get you some new clothes if you're going to be on stage in front of everybody. And he said, to hell with that. I'm wearing my slippers, my old jeans, and my old T-shirt. He's kind of stayed that way. So, every year when I go to the North Shore, he's got kids, I got kids, and we all hang out. And he's a good guy. He is,
and the way you describe him is absolutely perfect. And what's funny is, speaking of him being a backhand surfer, I think it was a Broke Down Melody. There's a small film piece in that where he was surfing this wave in South America. I think it was Chile or something.
Yeah.
And it was the longest. I don't recall ever seeing a wave longer than that. It was like 3 minutes. He just kept surfing.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe that. And were you filming there? I mean, I'm guessing you were part of that, right?
Yeah. That was one of our films. And
wow.
Yeah, he came down with Jerry Lopez and Yvonne Chouinard, and it's funny because I hadn't surfed with him in a while, and he'd been out on tour constantly, and he got in the water and just lit it up. He's so smooth. He's got such a great style, and that wave, Punta Lobos, which is the home of Ramon Navarro, is a really, really magical wave, and I stumbled on it in the late 90s. I was down, long story, but I was down there with Mickey Dora. He said he knew where a wave was, and I did not know what to expect, and we came over the hill to see that wave, and I was just, being goofy-foot, it blew my mind. So I've been down there 10 times since. I mean, it's just, it's like snowboarding, that wave. You just, you get 4 waves a session, and your legs are too tired to keep surfing.
Dude, it is a remarkable wave. We're joined by Chris Malloy here on WaXed. My co-host, Omar Echeverry, joined us ladies on the phone now. O-Dog, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. How's it going, guys?
Good. How are you, Omar?
Good, Chris. Just listening in on everything. And, I've always wondered, knowing you for so long and watching all your movies, you've worked on so many cool projects. What is your personal favorite out of all of them?
Well, okay. Well, first I got to say it's great to talk to Omar because I've watched him surf since he was probably 10 years old.
Wow.
So I'm a fan of his as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think I remember him taking my brother Dan out in a lot of heats, especially when they were NSSAs in Santa Cruz. So anyway, another lifetime ago.
Yeah, seriously.
Honestly, I think that first film we did was my favorite in terms of, it just, we had no expectations. Nobody even knew we were making a film. Everywhere we went, we just got lucky. We were up in the Bay of Bengal, Andaman Islands, and just found, some of the best waves I've ever seen in my life. And then we go to Tahiti, and that was it was Chopu and that whole scene. At that time, we still called it Kumbaya. There was no scene there. And to be there at Chopu, the whole world kind of didn't really even know much about it yet, was just magical. And everywhere we went was just felt so good. And like I said, Jack was writing that first album, so we had good music, we had good waves, and we just had, we slept on couches, and those old Bolex cameras, they're literally wind-up cameras, so you got this roll of film, and you plunk it in there. It takes 2 or 3 months before you get to see the footage, and so it was just no pressure. It was really fun. And then to get to come home and cut the stuff was that first experience was probably my favorite, looking back on it. Although we just were up in British Columbia last year, and we had a pretty amazing trip up there, in the Great Bear Rainforest, doing a documentary, and that kind of felt like the old days, because we were surfing waves that nobody had surfed before, and seeing big bear on the beach when you're watching your guys get barreled on the outside, and having bears and eagles flying around.
Yeah, are you referring to Vancouver Island, or like really North British Columbia?
North.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because I spent 3 months on Vancouver Island, and you're right. There's bald eagles are as prevalent as like pigeons here.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
No, I remember there's this one day where waves were so good, and I remember I was on the beach, and my brother Dan took off on this amazing wave. And I was just looking around going, I can't believe, how unique this is. And I looked down the beach, and there's this black bear standing on its back leg. It must have been 10 feet tall. And it's just sitting there watching my brother go down the line, and just like in awe. And I was like, wow. I've never experienced anything like this. So yeah, that was pretty magical. That place is pretty amazing.
That's so cool. And a lot of the surfers talk about how you pioneered, capturing the feeling of, what everyone was experiencing at that time. And, those movies were absolutely amazing.
That's a great way of putting it, Omar. That's a great way of putting it. You're absolutely right. You captured the essence of surfing back then. It was insane.
Well, I appreciate that, and I just got to say, that we just grew up. I grew up. My dad was a surfer, watching, Severson films, Pacific Vibrations, Morning of the Earth, and so we're really just trying to do what those guys were doing. We surely didn't come up with anything new. There was in the 80s and 90s, it was kind of anti-soul, it was like just about how hard you could hit the lip. And so all we did was pick back up where those guys had left off, and tried to capture the feeling of being in a place, rather than just the performance surfing. So no, I appreciate that, and we have a ton of fun, trying to put together pieces like that.
You did such a good job, and continue to do a good job. As far as the boom of the internet, kind of taking away from that, I don't know, I feel like the essence and the fun of a movie premiere. What do you see the movie scene going in the future as far as surf flicks and all that stuff?
For me, it's a good question, and it's bittersweet for me, because on one hand, I love that any kid can go out and make their own surf movie and share it with the world. On an iPhone you can do it, and then I'm so inept with computers, but they can download it or whatever, and it's on and there's something really cool about that. I love that. On the other hand, the audiences, their attention span is so short. A 5-minute clip is a long clip on the internet of surfing. You go on Surfline, and I do it too. You see a guy getting an 80-foot barrel on one clip, and you click on something else, and it's a guy doing a double spin in the air and landing it. And you basically got full, the heaviest stuff in the world going on in less than a minute. So then you ask people to go sit for an hour and watch, this long form, kind of aesthetically different, thing. And it's hard. It's really, it's hard. I've the last couple films we've done, I've done half hour, because by the 20-minute mark, you see people start texting and they're, talking. It's maybe I just need to make better films, but I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to keep people in their chairs, and so it's different. But I'm just trying to evolve with it, and my goal is if I can stay out on the road and go do surf trips and document them, I'm happy. So that's what I'm trying to continue to do.
Yeah, the problem is not.
I think the hardcore surf fans are still there.
Uh-huh.
We still have surf premieres in Santa Cruz, and there's still a group load of people. But I do agree, they used to be about an hour. They're down to like 20, 30 minutes. It's crazy.
Yeah, John just had this huge premiere party and everything in L.A. just recently, and I think the film was 15 minutes.
Wow,
that is crazy.
But yeah, there's something cool about that too. I'm not bummed on it. It's different.
And true, the problem is not with your filmmaking by any regards. It has so much to do with this generation. You're right. Their attention span is next to nothing. And I know people blame technology. I still think parenting is like the biggest problem. If you raise your kid right, they're not going to have issues like that. And speaking of, we're joined by Chris Malloy here in WaXed. And speaking of surf premieres, your brand Patagonia, which you're one of the original founding team members of, has a great new documentary coming out. It's called Uncharted Waters. It's a documentary about Wayne Lynch, legendary Australian surfer. The screenings of this film are going to be next week, this Thursday at Santa Monica at the Broad Stage, this Friday at the legendary La Paloma Theater in Encinitas. What a great venue for a surf premiere that place is. And then June 27th in New York at the Village East Cinema. If you go to the Patagonia surf blog at patagonia.com, you can find more information about that. And we're joined by Chris Malloy here on WaXed. I was reading about you a little bit, and there's so much that's fascinating about your career. For starters, if I'm not mistaken, you are the only surfers, at least as far as I know, and there might be others, who has surfed every continent. And the most daunting one, naturally, is Antarctica, just because it's so hard to get to. The water must be freezing. The conditions must be dangerous.
Yeah.
What was it like to surf in Antarctica?
My wife makes fun of me because she goes, you bring up that trip at least once a week since I've known, for the last 15 years that I've known you. It was definitely a defining, trip for me on so many levels. It's overwhelming, and the water's 33 degrees. So if you like mess up, and you lose your crew, for an hour, like you're dead. And there's those leopard seals that are vicious, and I was in the water at one point, and the glacier that we were surfing in front of calved, and a piece of ice like as big as a city block fell.
Wow.
Like 100 yards away from us. So it was definitely a scary trip, but really, really fun. And it's kind of. I was up in Alaska last week chasing that south up there, and it was cold, and it was a good adventure, but compared to Antarctica, it was nothing, So I think and the thing is it's such a vast place, and the conditions are so tumultuous that I've been dreaming of going back, because I really feel like somebody's going to find some really, really heavy, amazing waves down there. So, and we just barely scratched the surface. I've been talking to Ramon Navarro, and he's really fired up to get back down there. But yeah, people talk about the last frontier, but that's the last frontier.
Oh, without question. How did you describe the process? How did you how long did it take you to scout to find a good wave?
Well, that was mostly Doc Reneker. He was that guy's done more surf adventure in polar regions than anybody on Earth, and he had done years of kind of research on Antarctica, and so. He kind of got me involved, and I started looking at the maps with him, and we had, Steve Hawk and Art Brewer and some great characters, and we kind of had a few hunches, and sure enough, some of them, panned out, and we got some pretty amazing waves. In fact, it'd be snowing and sleeting, and we didn't really get to document that much of the trip, because we got a couple waves on that trip that we didn't get imagery of that were probably the best waves of the trip. But yeah, it was pretty. And so what we did is we sailed from Ushuaia, so Cape Horn, and crossed the Drake, which took 3 or 4 days, and then you get to Antarctica, and that crossing's the hands down worst crossing I've ever had in my life. I mean, nobody ate for 3 days because if you ate, it just come right back out. It was white knuckle for 3 days.
Oh my God, that is crazy. And that's a crazy crew you went with. I mean, Doc Renneker, for people that don't know, Northern California surfer. He was one of the pioneers of Mavericks, and then Stephen Hawk, who you mentioned, is Tony Hawk's brother, who I think is 12 years older. And I mean, he's I think he was like an editor at Surfing or Surfer, one of those for a large number of years. Fascinating crew. That's incredible, man. And will people get a chance to watch what you guys did, or can they now? Like, is it available?
I think there's something out there. Like, I was kind of, before I was filmmaking, actually I had just done Thicker Than Water, so that was kind of Art Brewer's project. So there's not that much. We shot hours and hours of stuff, but no, that one kind of just slipped through the cracks. It was more of, a trip just to do. But if I went back down, I'd love to do a full film on it. But I think there's some footage of that floating around somewhere.
That's fascinating.
Wow. That's insane. I remember the pictures of that, too, were absolutely breathtaking. You guys are crazy. You guys are nuts. As far as upcoming trips, do you have anything in the works and on the books?
Oh, geez. Like I said, I just got back from Alaska. I went up there to chase this last south. And, I mean, for me, I've always got, 3 or 4 trips that are on the books, and then you kind of watch the wind and the swell and see what crew wants to come, and but there's always a few, but it's always like we'll just see what happens.
And
that's the way to live life. That's rad.
Yeah, that is very true. We're joined by Chris Malloy here on WaXed. Going back to the surf films, I mean, I've always had this question. I've never got a chance to really ask it for someone who's really as tremendously talented as you are with producing surf films. Is there money to be made in that still? I mean, given YouTube and all this stuff where people just put these quick videos up, like, can you still have a career doing that, or has that changed?
Definitively, the answer is no.
Wow.
And to be honest, there's never really been, at least in my experience, an opportunity to make money off these things. The reason for us is that we were adamant about shooting 16mm film, which is like $100 a minute by the time you process it in telecine, and and we always tried to license good music, and we so yeah, and I think it's actually, I'm happy you asked that question, because I do think people think that you can make a bunch off surf films, and no, it's always been kind of these passion projects and kind of if you do make some money from one, you put it into the next one. After 20 years of doing it, I'm like, gosh, it's been a ton of work, and it's been really satisfying. But you better have a good day job to pull it off, or you're not making it. Unless you did the big commercial films, like if I did films for the big surf brands, and then they become more of like a branded content for the companies. But if most of ours have been independent, so when you go that route, you better be ready to cinch up your pocketbook, because you're not making money, especially now.
Yeah, absolutely right.
That's fine. I mean, we didn't do them for the money. We did them for the love of the experience, and we love sharing it with other surfers. So that's kind of, I've been satisfied.
Beautiful. Odo, you got a question? Hello?
Yeah, I was wondering about, a lot of those guys that did the successful videos for, of course, the major companies like Taylor and all those guys. What are those guys up to now? I know they do have, their online video events and stuff like that, but for the most part, what are those guys up to?
The whole Taylor and all and those guys?
Yeah.
I keep in touch with Taylor here and there, but I mean, gosh, he just seems like he's I know he's busy. I mean, he's got kids now, and I think he's living in Australia. He's got a place in Bali. He's just that guy is very prolific, and he's just, jamming. He's got a big team, and honestly, I wonder the same thing myself. I just know that he's constantly filming and constantly moving, so.
That's
Beautiful.
good. One of the few that's kept busy. That's good to hear. And I know you worked a lot with him in the past, and I mean, you guys all together kind of revolutionized not only that quick motion style of surfing, and then you kind of moved on to revolutionize the new era of emotional surf videos. And that, both you guys are legends.
Thanks.
It's true.
He kind of cornered that fast-paced kind of feel, and he's always. I mean, the thing with Taylor is he's always stayed on the cutting edge. Whoever the best surfers in the world are, they want to work with Taylor. And so when you watch one of his films, it's mind-bending. I mean, it's the absolute freshest, newest stuff, and whereas our focus has been a little bit more towards kind of places, and atmosphere, and different deal. But I don't watch a lot of surf movies, but every once in a while they'll be playing one of his films, and I'm always just blown away with whatever he puts out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, I'll pull out the old videos with all of you guys in them every once in a while, and it's just like I'm like blown away again.
Yeah, it feels like a different. It feels like just a different a lifetime ago. When you see those old films.
It's crazy, huh? It's true. They're very different feel to them, and your films, like Thicker Than Water, Broke Down Melody, Shelter, those remain for me like my favorite surf films. I mean, those are the ones that are like at the top of the list. I mean, I could sit there and just watch those all day because you're right. You captured you focus more on the wave, on the setting, and then you had amazing music to accompany it. It was just perfect, man. And we're joined by Chris Malloy here on WaXed. Just a couple more questions. I know we've had you for a long time, but you mentioned about 10 minutes ago or so, Mickey Dora. You actually had the opportunity to surf with him and hang out with him. What was that experience like? I mean, he's like a character that really no one else compares to in surfing. I mean, what was did that change you at all? I mean, what was that experience all about?
Yeah, it did, and it was in my life I've really went and seeked out a lot of my heroes and spent time with them. I've spent time in Mexico with Pat Kern. I've gone to Australia and spent time with George Greeno and Bob McTavish, and in Hawaii with Mark Cunningham and John Kelly. And I really, on my own time, have just wanted to go see those guys. My all-time heroes, go spend time with those guys. And Dora came from out of nowhere. I got a phone call one day, and it was this old voice. He wouldn't even say who it was, and he said, "I heard you're going to Antarctica, and I'm moving to Chile, and I could use some help." And I said, "Well, I'm not going to Chile," and it was this really awkward conversation. I said, "Sorry, man, I wish I could help you." And I got off the phone, and then my friend Porter Turnbull told me, he said, "Hey, I gave Mickey Dora your number. He might be calling." I said, "Holy shit!" So sorry about the language. I star 69'd him.
That's okay, man.
And it was Mickey Dora, and he told me what he was doing. I said, "You know what? I'll change my ticket, and I'll help you move down there." He wanted to move down there, and he's an absolute. He's like such a contradiction. One minute he's really sweet and really giving, and the other minute he'd have a full edge to him, and he would be, kind of bitter and weird, and but he was always colorful, always full of history. When you talk about some of the, Pete Peterson and Tommy Zahn and those guys, Tom Blake. I mean, he talked about them as though they were his buddies. He talked about Steelhead and Malibu Creek and riding horseback up Malibu Creek, and when you got him going, it was I wish I had a tape recorder, but it was just full of. It was like going back in time for me, because I love that stuff so much, the history and the early days.
Yeah. And
and he still surfed well at that time too. We got at Lobos, he got some 300-yard long lefts, and we found these local gauchos, and we borrowed their horses in the morning sometimes, and he was a good could ride a horse well, and he was so different than what you read about the Dark Knight, all of his antics in Hollywood and Malibu, and I think anybody in those environments acts strangely. I think that's what they go to Hollywood and Malibu to act strangely.
Yeah.
But when you get him out in the country, and he was a good guy.
The way you described that initial phone call is exactly how I would picture it, which is funny. And you're right. And he was in a very unique position where he experienced firsthand the explosion of popularity of surfing. I mean, he went from being out there with nobody around to everybody wanting to do what he was doing.
Yeah.
So you can understand why he was pissed and annoyed. I get it.
Yeah, it was interesting, and that's why it was so complex, because, and I think anybody in pro surfing can relate to this, is that he also was a big part of the boom. He was in those beach blanket bingo films. He was in a lot of the advertising. He was the hero that everybody wanted to be, and people from the inland came down to be a surfer because they knew about Dora. So, and I think as in professional surfing, I think some of the older surfers tend to get so frustrated with the crowds and stuff. And I always remind my buddies, I go, hey, we're part of the reason. We made these films, and I was just last summer in the Mentawais with Kelly and Shane and Taylor Knox and Ross Williams and Rob Machado, and it was really, really, really crowded. And all the guys in one of our boats one day were complaining about the crowd. I go, hey, dude, these guys saw September Sessions, man. That's why they're here. It's your guys' fault. It's our fault. So
so true.
So yeah, with Dora, he was bitter, but I also sensed that he understood that he had a hand in it. He had a hand in popularizing surfing, and I think he battled with that. So, but he battled with a lot of things. I mean, he I think his biggest problem is that he was so smart. He really was. He could talk politics and knew a lot about what was going on, and so he always ran from it. I think he was one of the very first guys to dedicate his life to surf travel, and he went to a lot. I mean, whether it's all those places in Europe, South America, Africa. While the surf industry was starting to boom, he was out in the middle of nowhere, living in these huts. Being chased by the FBI and CIA and whatever else. I mean, a movie on Mickey Dora would be all time.
It would, and there's books written about him, and at some point I really want to read about it, because you're right, he's a very complicated character, very intelligent, which can be a blessing and a curse all at once. Natalie, do you have a question for Chris Malloy?
Yeah, I've always respected you and your brothers because you guys are so much about family, and I guess I can relate because I'm really close with my brothers, and we do a lot of things together just like you guys.
Yeah.
But you have 2 kids, correct?
Yeah.
A son and a daughter?
Yeah.
Do they have the same relationship like you and your brothers have? Are they pretty close, and do they follow in your path? Are they surfing and hunting with you? Because you did talk about a story.
My kids are, they're 4 and 6, and they got cousins now, and we all, our family does spend a lot of time together, and it's funny because I have had that question before where people say, God, what, it's so cool, your family's so tight, and it used to be kind of perplexing to me because I was like, well, that's our family. Like, isn't every family like that?
Exactly.
And then as I've gotten older, I've seen that some families aren't tight, and so I just feel very blessed that we get along. I mean, we like the same stuff. And we've always been like that, and I think it has a lot to do with growing up in the country. So there wasn't a lot of other people to hang out with, and we didn't live way in the middle of nowhere. But we lived in an environment where you hung out with your family, and so yeah, I feel real blessed that we are a tight family, but by no means does that mean we don't get after each other and bicker. We go at it just like any other family. I think it's just that we at the end of the day, we always, crack a beer and laugh about it. And but yeah, I think my kids are growing up in that same sort of environment.
That's awesome, and we're joined by Chris Malloy here in WaXed, and of course, it's pretty obvious that you're Irish, and I have a huge respect for your culture. Most of the women I've ever dated seriously were Irish. And so I can understand the family aspect being there. And your 2 brothers, Keith and Dan, are pretty much who you most, at least most people are most familiar with. Do you guys have any plans to do anything together in the near future?
We don't ever. It's funny. We don't plan too much. It's like it's been 20 years of just kind of. All right, there's a swell here. We heard a rumor about a left point break here. I'm going. Whoever wants to go can come, and I got to say that over the years, the filmmakers we work with, Scott Sillens and Dave Holmesy and Tim Lynch and my cousin Emmett Malloy, and there's probably 10 or 15 other guys that has almost become like a big family where it's just kind of interchangeable. A lot of the guys can run a camera, a lot of guys can get barreled, and it's just where a place starts percolating, and it's kind of like who wants to go. And so, I mean, I've done trips where honestly I just know part of the crew's coming. When I fly from Santa Barbara, they fly from San Francisco or LA, and when we land, I kind of realize who shows up when I get to the place. You know, we've all been doing this for so long that you just kind of, you take 10, 15 minutes to paddle or to pack, throw your stuff in the bag, go to the place, and see who shows up. So it's kind of it's not usually planned out that well.
I love it.
We just go.
I love it. And again, you and your two brothers, Keith and Dan, you're like the founding surf team members of Patagonia, your main sponsor, and they have a new documentary out, Uncharted Waters, about Australian surfer Wayne Lynch. There's 3 screenings for it coming up, too, right here in Southern California on Thursday at Santa Monica at the Broad Stage, and then Friday at the epic, legendary La Paloma Theater in Encinitas. If you visit Patagonia.com and go to the surf blog, you can find out how to get tickets for that. And then June 27th in New York, there's a screening at the Village East Cinema. Any other sponsors? Anyone else you want to promote and plug that are paying your bills?
No, Patagonia is the one. So yeah, I appreciate that, and I'm super excited to go and like we were saying, the golden era of the surf movie's almost over. It feels like, and so the idea of going to La Paloma and going to these places is just, La Paloma is just so legendary, and it does feel like that old school surf film gathering of the tribe, and so I'm just super excited to be there and help support Wayne and share his story, and really excited.
And we were excited to have you on the show, man. You've been on for a long time. Thank you so much, dude. It was a great interview.
Hey, thank you guys, and hopefully I'll see you in the water soon.
Hopefully, absolutely, man.
Thanks, Omar.
Thank you, Chris. That was Chris Malloy here on WaXed on ESPN 1700.
Visit our website, WaXedRadio.com, to get complete show podcasts and follow us on all social media at WaXed Radio. Now, here's a recap of the weekend surf news.
I want to sincerely thank Chris Malloy. We had him on for a very long time. That was like a 45-minute interview we had with Chris. But, there's only a handful of surfers out there that you can have a conversation like that for so long and keep it interesting the entire time. And that was the case with Chris Malloy. Our sincerest thanks again for him joining the program. And if you missed that interview, which is a fantastic interview, visit our website, waxedradio.com. That's waxedradio.com, where we podcast every show, usually about an hour or so after the show ends. We'll have the show online at our website, WaXed Radio. And O-Dog, look at that little shout-out he gave to you at the beginning, following your career.
That was classic. No, Chris is such a good guy. I was a lot younger than him, but him and Dan and I were good friends, and I travel a lot with Keith. But Chris was always the supportive older brother, and really supportive to me as well. I used to hang out at their house that he talks about in Hawaii with Jack Johnson and all those guys. And those guys moved to Hawaii with nothing to make themselves, make their careers, and they did. And I admire everything he did. And we used to always talk about it, these moments while you're traveling as a surfer, they're so amazing. And he was able to capture those and did such a good job and put it into books. And I admire him so much for everything he's done.
Absolutely. And, I guarantee you, if he collaborated with Jack Johnson again, that surf movie would make money, especially given how popular Jack Johnson is now. You know what I'm saying? Like, if they release something, like an hour-and-a-half documentary of them just traveling, surfing with Jack's music, that would actually make money, He should consider it.
Definitely. I think that's something that you could take to, the big screens.
Yes.
Somewhat like the success. The Endless Summer 1 and 2 had. Those guys could easily achieve that, especially with their popularity and gosh, how good, obviously, how talented they both are.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if someone's listening right now and going, let's make that happen. Some Hollywood exec right now is like, oh, that would be a good movie. Anyways.
Just make sure they give you a little credit there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
He's truly awesome. Like, I just loved watching him and even though I'm younger, like, they were always an inspiration to me. Like, it was cool watching them growing up.
When those movies were released, you were at an incredibly impressionable age. You probably love those movies as much, if not more, than us.
Yeah, but what's really crazy is I've actually have more, they have more of an impression on me when they were, like, younger, because I had an older brother who grew up, like, watching them and watching all their videos.
Yeah.
So even those videos as well have, like, a huge impression on me. And like Omar says, like, we're going through, like, VHS's videos, and we're like, oh my gosh, look at all these old surf videos we have of them. I found those, like, recently, like, you don't watch them anymore, but like you put one in, you're like, these are crazy. Like,
Yep. There's such good movies, and Omar, you called it perfectly in terms of just how well he captured the essence of surfing. And again, his surf brand, Patagonia, I mean, it's their brand. Patagonia is the Malloys in so many ways. Their brand has produced a new documentary, Uncharted Waters. It's about Patagonia ambassador, team writer, and Australian legend Wayne Lynch. The movie, again, is called Uncharted Waters. It's screening this Thursday at Santa Monica at the Broad Stage, this Friday at the La Paloma Theater in Encinitas, and on June 27th at the Village East Cinema in New York, New York. Visit Patagonia.com and go to their surf blog to get tickets and more information. Natalie, what's been going on this last week in surfing?
Well, as you guys probably already know, Kelly Slater defeated Mick Fanning in a thrilling final at the Volcom Fiji Pro. This is Slater's second win of the year, and it places Slater clear in the overall lead of the 2013 ASP World Tour ranking. Did you guys, do you gentlemen watch this?
Of course.
Of course, huh?
Yeah.
What kind of question is that?
Well, and it's worth mentioning, too, this was some of the finest waves ever for an ASP World Tour contest. Ever. I mean, it's... O-Dog, what rivaled this? You know what I'm saying? I mean, these were bombing, sometimes double overhead, beautiful, deep barrels at Cloudbreak. You know, I mean, when was the last time you saw something like this?
Boy, we haven't had an event like this since the early days of Stoco. I mean, really.
Yeah.
I mean, and that was, now 7-8 years ago. So, yeah, absolutely amazing waves. What a great contest and what a great place. Tabarua is amazing.
And it goes to show that when the waves are as bombing and as near perfect as these are, no Brazilians are in sight. They were out of the contest early, and that's when you knew who the best surfers in the world were. I mean, it was incredible. I mean, you had Kelly Slater and Mick Fanning in the final. Joel Parkinson and Fanning face off in the quarters. Kelly and John faced off in the semis. CJ Hobgood was in the other semi. I mean, CJ Hobgood knows that break as well as anybody. This was like just, it went as exactly how you could possibly picture a fantastic, marvelous ASP World Tour contest going. The one exception being the webcast commentating. And at some point, we almost got Dave Stanfield, who's a terrific webcast commentator on the show this Saturday before we had the chance to get Chris Malloy. And we're going to get him on soon because I'd love to get his insights on just, why do they do such a terrible job? Why do they pick such bad, untalented people for webcast commentating? You know what I'm saying? Like, I literally muted the contest, and it was still awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty. It was no comment. I don't know what to say, other than the fact that this is going to change very soon, and I'm curious how the companies and the surf industry is going to take the change. Because I mean, we obviously know that they're in search of an anchor person. Who knows who it's going to be? So there's going to be an anchor person at every single event who will be the anchor. I know we talked about it a little bit last show. So my biggest issue with these webcasts is there is no anchor. You got two people fighting color. So that'd be like having two ex-pro NFL guys trying to commentate the Super Bowl.
You're right.
Like, think of that. It'd just be silly. They'd be, this one time and this guy and in the locker room, and it's insane how much of that they have. Someone's really got to, sit down. I am the anchor. You are the color. Let's work together, just like every other professional sport.
And, personally, I don't have an issue if Sal Masekela is one of those guys. He was at this contest, and I think one of the days he was commentating it. He's a professional. He's been doing this for I don't know how many years. He knows what he's doing. He sounds good. But he was nowhere to be found for the finals. He just vanished. He was there for like a day, and then that was it. And then he had a bunch of hacks, doing the webcast commentating again. This was the worst webcast commentating crew I have ever listened to in all my years following surfing. It was terrible. It was a joke. But yeah, Dave Stanfield would have been amazing doing this, I don't know. You're right. They're going to make an announcement hopefully sooner than later.
Maybe they should have Omar do it. He did pretty good with that NFL reenactment. Oh, these guys in the locker room.
Oh, my gosh. Now, can you imagine two, ex-pro NFL guys trying to do the whole Super Bowl themselves?
Well, you know what?
I don't know. You did a pretty good job right there, Omar.
Insane. I mean, seriously, they'd be talking about who knows what. But, yeah, hopefully they do change it soon. As far as Sal being there, he was actually there just to film the Red Bull.
Oh, so he came in the booth for a little while and then bounced?
Yeah, exactly. So he was over there filming this amazing Red Bull TV program. I believe that did air or is airing soon on primetime on ABC. So Red Bull, boy, they do everything right.
Yep.
They got the pockets, and their creative directors are insane.
Yeah.
I mean, you can say what you want to say about Red Bull, but they treat all their athletes good. They do such a good job in sports.
No, you're absolutely right. Then Red Bull does
Gives
it.
you wings.
No, that too. Remember that slogan? If you're old enough to remember those commercials when Red Bull first came out, they had those little animated commercials where the guy flies away with the wings. I mean, that's like that's non-existent now. Now it's all about action, sports, brah. But they do it right. Omar, you're absolutely correct. They get it. They put the right people in charge. And the ASP World Tour needs more of that because that was ridiculous. But the surfing was incredible. The waves came through. What a great contest. Congratulations to 41-year-old Kelly Slater for being in the lead for his chase for a 12th ASP World title. And just fantastic job by all the surfers for surfing those incredible waves. What else in the news?
Okay, well, if you're not driving right now and you're at a computer or your phone, I suggest you go to waxradio.com. Again, that's waxradio.com.
It's waxed with a D, like you got waxed.
Okay, waxradio.com. Anyways, on our website, we have a video of Kelly Slater, and he's going like UFC MMA, and he's fighting Jason Parillo, who is a champion boxer trainer. Now, I'm a huge UFC MMA fan, and I love this. So when I saw this video was taken 3 years ago, and I didn't think Kelly Slater wasn't going to do that good. But if you watch it, he actually does pretty good. They go at it and they fight, and I was surprised that he lasted. It was only one round, so I don't know what would happen if there was 3 rounds. But I suggest you go check it out if you're an MMA or UFC fan, because it was interesting to watch.
Yeah, we talked about this about a week ago about how multifaceted Kelly Slater is. Greatest surfer ever, scratch golfer, which is unreal by itself. Incredible guitar player, and he's legitimate at MMA.
And he dates porn stars.
Who's the porn star he dated?
Pamela Anderson.
She's not a porn star,
but
she's
she
close.
Was in a video, okay?
She's close, but
however, I love her, okay? So I'm not even hating on her, but he dated Pamela Anderson.
But keep in mind, he dated Pam Anderson pre-Hep C. He dated Pam Anderson when she was in her prime. In other words, he dated her.
He still dated her
during the Bay.
Still dated
it was during
her.
the Baywatch years, though. That's when she was. She was ridiculous then.
Guys, he dated Giselle. Come on, she was the most famous model
he
of
dated
our generation.
She's even smoking hot.
Do you want to?
You would say.
Do you want to do a checklist of who he's dated, real quick?
I guess.
Here it is. He dated Pam Anderson pre-Hep C, when she was almost a 10, right? I mean, when she was young in her 20s, Baywatch years. Giselle Bundchen in her prime before she had kids. He dated Cameron Diaz when she was hot before she looks like a 50-year-old witch.
Ooh, you're harsh.
No,
oh my gosh, what do you say behind my back?
No, you're fine. Who else? I'm forgetting somebody. There's someone we're missing on this. Remember, we had him on the show one time when it was rumored he was dating Kirsten Dunst. He denied that, and I don't think that was proven. I'm forgetting somebody. There's somebody he dated that I know he.
Don't hate the player, hate the game.
I don't have internet in here, so I can't look it up. But anyways, he's and his current girlfriend, Kalani Miller, is another model, and dude, he's insane. He is unreal. But yeah, if you go to our website, waxedradio.com, and go to the videos page, there right there is the video of Kelly Slater doing a round of MMA, holding his own. It's a very entertaining video, and that video was 3 years. It's 3 years old. I mean, he did that back in 2010. When the ASP World Tour was in Brazil recently, I believe he was sparring with the Gracies, and that time the bridge of his nose busted open because he had a bloody face. But apparently he's legit. He knows how to fight. He's the greatest athlete in the world, or certainly is in the argument for that, or in the, certainly in the race for that. If you had to, break it down among who really are the greatest athletes ever, at least currently. So naturally he's going to hold his own in an MMA fight. O-Dog, have you seen it?
No, I haven't. I can't wait to see it. I heard he is a really good. I mean, the guy is a freak already. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's amazing, dude. What else going on in the news?
Okay, well, last year, San Onofre Power Plant north of San Diego shut down due to radiation leak. The Southern California Edison, also known as the SCE, has been trying to fix the problem for a year, but it seems as if the problem won't be fixed. Or will it for some? Okay, so see, the past week, the SEC concluded that they cannot fix or resolve the problem. So they decided, since they can't fix or resolve the problem anytime soon, they decided to close the plant. Now, if they close the plant, this is 1,100 jobs that will be lost, according to the Los Angeles Times. Now, while some say this is like depressing, others say like anti-nuclear activists, they hail at this announcement and they stated that this is a great national and real strong message that the nation does not need nuclear power anymore. So though the power plant is closing, to some this is like wonderful, but to others this is definitely devastating, and like towards our economy it can be devastating as well.
You know who I forgot that Kelly Slater dated? Sorry. Completely going back
the
two
power
stories.
plant is going down.
We'll touch on that in a second because that is wonderful news. But you know who we forgot, and this was the obvious one. Bar Raffaelli.
Oh, that's right.
I mean, dude. Okay, so check down this list of Kelly Slater's conquests. Pam Anderson pre-Hep C, when she was in her Baywatch days. Gisele Bündchen, before she had kids. Cameron Diaz, before she got old and nasty. Bar Raffaelli, who's still like a 10. And then his current girlfriend, Kalani Miller. Hey, now.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, back to the big
Yes.
radioactive plant that looks like a giant something or other.
Dolly Parton.
Oh, yeah. If you ever seen the movie Naked Gun, one of the greatest scenes of all those movies was at the beginning of the first film. Frank Drebin drives by San Onofre talking about his ex-wife and how he misses her. And he says, everything I see reminds me of her. And then they drive by San Onofre with the two breasts. And that, it's shut down. Dude, it's fantastic news. O-Dog, do you agree?
You know, I do agree with, I don't know. I'm a little bit on the fence as far as nuclear power because, I mean, what does that mean? From what I read and I heard on NPR is that that's going to make us go more towards, natural gas, natural gas is great because, it was, quote, natural gas, but the emissions off that stuff is really bad. So, you know what? I'm on the fence. I don't know if I'm unhappy that we're cutting back on nuclear or happy. I don't know.
Well, it depends. Like here, what they're going to do is all the power is going to come from strictly electricity, which is zero emissions. So that's great news here. Like the natural gas you're referring to, like they're not going to use natural gas to supply electricity for, all of northern San Diego and parts of Orange County like the nuclear power plant was doing. So they're going to use electricity. That's great. There's two aspects of the story that, we can talk about a bit. One are all those jobs lost, which is very unfortunate. The bright side to that, though, is that these are very high-skilled workers. These aren't people that are going to be just out on the streets with no skills, not knowing what the hell they're going to do. They might have to move away from the area, but they're good. There's jobs out there. Like if you know how to operate a nuclear power plant, if you're an employee of a nuclear power plant, unless you're a custodian, you're going to find work because you have skills that are valuable in the workforce. The one thing remaining with this story that is unanswered is those two big boobs that you see off the freeway at San Onofre. The purpose of those things is to store the nuclear waste. So when these fuel rods are spent, they go directly into those boobs, and all the water that is processed also goes into those boobs. Those are like the storage containers for all the radioactive waste. If there's no plan for those things. In other words, those boobs are filled up with pure toxic waste, and they have no idea what they're going to do with all that stuff. They never did to begin with, which is a whole other issue, and that's really one of the biggest problems with nuclear energy. You're right, there's no emissions that come out of it, but you have to do something with all that spent radioactive waste. There's no easy solution to that because burying it is not a viable solution. So they still got to figure out what to do with that. But the fact that it's shut down, great news, especially given they're replacing it with just standard electricity.
Where does that come from? That's what I'm talking about. That's probably mostly coal burn.
No, not here. Not here. Most of the coal stuff is either down in the East Coast. The Midwest has some coal plants, and even those have regulations, so whatever they're emitting is supposed to be filtered. China is the big culprit with coal. The electricity here, if I'm not mistaken, is a lot of it's, and that's why there's all this discussion about wind, solar. That's why dams exist, because electricity can be generated through those aspects.
And which I think is great, but from what they said on NPR, a lot of they're still researching where they're going to get all the power from after they shut this power plant down.
But it's been shut down for like over a year, so they've already been using just clean electricity.
But from where?
From whatever's producing it, from just this transformers. I don't know. This is where I'm not an expert, and we'd probably have to get someone on at some point.
From what they said, some of it's coming from natural gas and coal. That's what they're saying on NPR about this, and that's where I come into feeling like, okay, well, that's great. You know, the big word nuclear is bad, but nuclear when a nuclear plant is working, the emissions are less than those other plants.
Yeah.
So I just feel like, you know, sure, it's good, but, you know, I mean, until we really start utilizing true natural energy,
yeah.
I mean, whether I'm happy about it, I'm not really happy about it until they go, okay, well, we're going to use 100% wind. You know, say they put a wind field out in the Pacific, and that's all San Diego uses. Sure, great, that's awesome. You know?
Yeah.
But until then, you know, I'm on the fence when they shut down the nuclear plant.
Yeah,
But even those alternative energy things are like ugly. Like those windmills all the way out in 29 Palms, those things are so ugly. Like I wouldn't want those in the ocean. I would be like, I mean, that's why I don't live in 29 Palms.
Yep. And if you heard the sound studies about them, they're really loud, I guess, and it's really messed up birds. I mean, I'm not trying to be a full-on tree hugger, but
yeah,
the studies on the wind fields is really gnarly. I guess they put off some crazy sound that really messes with nature.
Interesting. Well, I'd rather have poor aesthetics and some noise that might bother some birds than a potential nuclear disaster. Fukushima is what completely changed my perspective. I was already sketchy about it to begin with, because you got to remember, a nuclear disaster is the absolute worst case scenario. And unfortunately, that's what the risk is with nuclear power plants. If that risk wasn't there, dude, they'd be everywhere. That's all the world would be running on. But one disaster, and dude, all of it's worth nothing. You know what I'm saying? There are no easy answers for the world's energy crisis, but fossil fuels we have to wean off of, and hopefully there's some magic cure-all, fix-all that has to do with clean energy. You know, we clearly have not gone there yet, and that's a huge impediment for mankind, unfortunately. Anything else going on in surfing?
What do you want to do? One more, two more?
Let's do one more. Then we'll wrap it up.
Well,
we got the U.S. Open golf coming up next year on ESPN 1700, but yeah, one more story.
Okay, well, since it is Father's Day, happy Father's Day, Omar. Hey, Father's Day weekend.
Tomorrow, yeah.
Dad, happy Father's Day. What's up?
What are you getting for Father's Day? What's your perk?
Well, I have an idea. For people out there.
I have no idea.
There's these new Dragon sunglasses that are floatable. Yeah, there's this new collection out. Dragon came out with this new type of sunglasses. There's 5 pairs you can choose from, and they're actually pretty stylish, and they float in the water. And I saw this video that was promoting them with Shane Dorian, and they actually like totally float. Like he goes underwater and then they like float up and everything. And I was like, I don't think so, because I didn't think they were going to be that stylish, but they look pretty cool. They're their H2O floatable collection, and it's the first ever line of floating sunglasses.
Well, I don't know if that would be the greatest gift for Omar since he works for Oakley.
Oh, maybe other people out there listening, though. No, I wasn't directing towards Omar.
Of course.
People out there listening, or even your dad.
But you know, it is mind-boggling to me that it's taken this long for a sunglass company to come up with floatable sunglasses, because how many times have people lost their sunglasses by being in the water and they fall off?
Think of the bottom of like lakes after raging weekends. Oh my god.
Oh, so Omar, is Oakley gonna follow suit soon and make sunglasses like these that float?
I have no idea, to be honest.
Okay.
I did see the video and I saw the release. I mean, for like a party guy, that sounds like the best shades ever.
Yes.
Yeah, like out on the river and stuff. I was like, oh, these be awesome. I don't know if I would surf in these ever, but...
Oh, I imagine so many roided out guys with really bad tribal tattoos above their butt just hiking right now. Just so pumped.
You know, like, I know, like, you're not a huge fan of stand-up paddling, but, like, if you were, like, in the lake, you know, or the river.
Oh, dude, I'm a fan of it there.
If you did it there, though, and you had the sunglasses, you know, and they fall, like, then you wouldn't have to worry, because I'm always afraid you're going to lose them, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I remember I lost a really expensive pair in a lake, and for years I bought the $10 pairs after that, because I just was like, screw this.
Or fishing, too. Like, when you're out fishing,
anything.
I know so many times, like, you go to reach over to grab the fish and bring it on deck, and you're like, oh my gosh, like you're afraid they're gonna fall out. And that's even like freshwater fishing. Doesn't even have to be saltwater too. So
Yeah.
I could see it expanding quickly.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for the news. And, we'll be back next week. We're going to be on a new time next week. We're going to be on from 11 a.m. to noon. So if you're listening to us right now, we will be on again then. Only we'll be in the guest portion of the show. But so tune in next week at our new time from 11 a.m. to noon. If you want to follow us and find out like what time we're on each week, find out what guests we're going to have on the program, follow us on Twitter at WaXed Radio. Again, our Twitter handle is at WaXed Radio. That is also our Facebook handle and our Instagram handle. It's all just one username, and that is WaXed Radio. And that is also the website where we podcast all of our shows. Our website, again, is waxedradio.com. That's waxedradio.com. Again, if you missed that interview we did with Chris Malloy, literally one of the best interviews I've ever done. That was fantastic, O-Dog. What do you think?
Oh, that was great. I mean, what a great guy, too, and I look forward to more projects with this guy.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And again, just check out our website, waxedradio.com. We have a great gallery page, a great video page, a great section where we post all sorts of stories and articles as well, and of course the podcast of our show on there as well. And again, follow us on Twitter at WaXed Radio. Omar, it's a pleasure as always, brother.
Of course, brother. And have a great weekend, everyone out there.
Yeah, and happy Father's Day to all the dads out there, including yourself, Omar. And, we'll be back next Saturday. Natalie Rose, great job as always.
Thank you so much. Have a good weekend, gentlemen.
Yeah, you too. And I'm Cyrus Sotzes. This is WaXed Radio. And the name of the show is WaXed on ESPN 1700.
That is it for us today. And we will leave you with I can't do it. No. We'll do it live. Do it live. And thing sucks.